Good afternoon, or good morning, or wherever you are. Hey, and welcome here to our next episode of User Office Hours. Uh, Together with me, Matt Jarvis. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Hi, Brian. Evening, folks. Evening, all. It's going to be an exciting one today, right? We're going to be learning about GitHub Actions.
So, what did you think about GitHub Actions? If I say GitHub Actions, what are your first thoughts?
So this is like magic, though, right? I've never really used it, so I'm looking forward to doing this. But like having stuff just auto magically happen inside your source code management system. So the basis of GitHub Actions, that it's a continuous integration, continuous delivery thing built into GitHub, right? So you trigger a workflow based on an event. But I think you also told me yesterday that it doesn't have to be about events, right? That it can be scheduled as well.
Yeah, it can be scheduled as well. One of the events is a cron tab, or basically a cron expression.
Thank you, Chris. Very kind of you.
I appreciate that. Thanks. But yes, it is true that I have some GitHub Actions running on a daily basis to do some smoke tests on some of my applications that run every morning at 6 a.m. my time. For those who don't know, I'm based in Amsterdam, so 6 a.m. is probably different from your 6 a.m. Because it's already evening over here. But yeah, you can do that.
Okay, so then we define some jobs, which can be a whole set of steps, and then we define what those jobs are going to run in, what environment those jobs are going to run in, right? So that could be, I'm going to assume without looking it up at the minute, that can be like a specific container image.
Well, basically, I think it's every job or every runner runs in a, what you can say, it either a virtual machine or a container, and you ask or you tell that GitHub Actions what it should run with, like either Ubuntu, Linux, Windows.
Mac OS, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Each executes in a newly provisioned VM, right? Okay. Interesting.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean.
And then you can host your own runners if you need something more custom.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. And it's all defined in YAML. I've seen these before. So like super easy to configure. So this looks a lot easier than Jenkins, right?
It is a lot easier in Jenkins, and I think the beneficial thing is that it's part of your source code now. Like, these files are part of your source code. Get into your Git repository right away, and you just have a one-stop shop. If you're on GitHub, it's an easy thing to do. And well, you can also use it because cron is also a thing there to do some automation. If you want to run something like on a daily basis and do something, it's basically a VM that spins up, and you can do all sorts of things with scripts, and so it's a good way to get free automation without spinning up, I don't know, an AWS container or a node or do something on Heroku, whatever.
Right. So this is a GitHub repository. Have we seen that one? Right. Okay. So we're straight into editing a YAML file. What have we got here? We've got the workflow name. We can control when our actual workflow is going to run. So this is going to trigger, we can say trigger when we push to a branch, or to, presumably to a branch or a set of branches. And we can trigger on pull request for a whole set of branches. And so far, what have we got here? Allows you to run this workflow manually from the Actions tab. Oh, I guess this is being able to run it from the UI rather than as a test. And then this is starting to define that jobs flow that we looked at before in the docs.
Let's just look for GitHub Actions Snyk. And we probably here, this is the docs. So these are the docs, and the docs are pretty much one line. Go to the repository.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've seen these. So we've got a set of GitHub Actions predefined, right?
Yeah. We've got a set of actions predefined, and they are on a GitHub repository. And well, pretty much you see them over here. And these are the things that you can do, because it depends on your ecosystem what you need to do. Because normally, if say you were running a JavaScript application, you probably want to do npm install first to get all the dependencies in. If you're, for instance, running Snyk, the SCA, so the dependency scanners. I'm having I have a Java application here because, yeah, you know, I'm like, some people make mistakes. I do Java, and now I wait until my other manager comes on board and laughs me out. But still, if I can create actions like this, and I can, like, for instance, say configure action, package my Java application with Maven. That would be a good way to do it. But I can also see like what is Snyk actually doing, because they already package things for me with Maven, and I'm using Maven to build my application, so it can just as much be npm or PyPI or whatever build tool you are using, and we have configured actions for that. And basically, let's just do this example workflow for Maven using Snyk. So I'm just copying this part,
because that's all these actions are, right? Is YAML.
It's just YAML.
It's just copy paste some YAML from one place to another place, configure it, job done.
Yeah. So I'm setting up a workflow myself, and I basically get this empty YAML file. So let's call this Maven Snyk. That's basically the Maven example. And if I paste this in, it says on push. So when I push anything, a job will start, and it runs on Ubuntu latest. Is based on, well, basically.
It might be worth just boosting the text size a little bit there. I think there's maybe a few folks on the stream with slightly lower bandwidth, and it gets difficult to read those texts when the thing's too small. Should we put me and you down the side, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is already better. So what it says, like the first steps, it uses my my code. Then it uses the Snyk action.
What you're saying there is check out the master branch, but that right. So presumably that could be a Git ref, that could be a branch, that can be anything, right?
I think so. So the things that does now, and it's based on something else. Run Snyk to check the vulnerabilities, and it uses an action, a predefined action, Maven master, and that is pretty much, if we look here back in the Maven thing, that probably is, I think this action is located, which is pretty much also YAML, and it uses a Docker image, and that Docker image is loaded, that already has that build tool in it, because we need to build that application from code first before we want to use Snyk, in this case Snyk open source or the SCA scanner, and then we go on. So on top of this, we build our own GitHub actions, and that is, I need to set a token, so I need to set a security token, and that it's Snyk_token.
So I'm kind of confused here, because I thought the docs said that you could only have runners.
I think I'm doing something wrong here. Let me get back to the yes, here I was. I think I have the original still, and then copied the thing over it. So yes, this is just the action. So this is the action we want to have. Let's go back over here. Let's delete everything. And yes, so basically it's just this. I'm using that predefined Maven master that we published, and that's based on a Docker container, and that already says a few things on, for instance, building the stuff and then running Snyk. and by default, it runs Snyk using the CLI. So if I'm not specifying anything, it uses Snyk open source, and the only thing I need is a Snyk account and the token. And of course, if I want this token, I need to set it up. So let's go on my other screen and first get my security token, because I'm not going to show that to you.
Oh, come on!
I learned the hard way that these kind of things.
Yeah. I think I've done that myself, Brian.
Yeah, well.
To be honest, it's all right if it happens at a conference. It's when you're live on YouTube and it's all being recorded that it's a bit of a disaster.
Where do I put? This is settings.
There's action settings there,
Secret.
right?
Secrets.
Oh, you put it in as a secret, right? Okay. Right.
Action, and now I just new repository secret, and that was Snyk_token. And normally I would paste my thing in here, but so what I do before that is
come off the screen.
That's classified.
And going back here, I set it you now see that I have a repository secret Snyk token. So I can connect my GitHub Actions or basically anything to my Snyk account. And normally you can do that with an environment variable. Yeah, and this is basically the equivalent for that. So I have Snyk_token available, and well, pretty much that is how it should work. So this is my application, and it's triggered on a push. Well, let's start this commit. Let's see what works. Maven Snyk action. Let's try it. So I commit this file, and I'm not sure if it's already like triggered right away or it's the next commit. What we do know is that if you go back to your code, it is now part of .github/workflows, and there you have this. So let's for instance change the name over here so that we have an actual push, and just make it example Snyk. So start commit something, and we probably, if you go back to actions, let's see if the workflow is running. This workflow has no runs yet. What am I doing wrong?
Something is wrong with you.
Normally you see your actions over here, and this is an example action, and you see what kind of runs normally.
You see the runs there, right? Okay. Well, why didn't you?
It did run, and it says push. I did a commit. Maybe this was just running, and I just had to wait. That could be. Like, this is the Maven Snyk action I actually did. So what does it say? It is that security action, so it did run. It checked for vulnerabilities, and basically you can authentication failed.
Oh, interesting.
Snyk_token, which should be the right secret for actions, and this is still in my same repository.
So we've got a question while we're working that one out from Chris. Can I run Snyk for different environments, like dev, QA, prod at the same time? You mean with GitHub Actions specifically? Yeah, I believe so, because your environments, if your environments are represented as a branch, which they probably are, I guess. Please do tell us more example of that. But if they were identified as a branch, you just have separate actions that pull just for pulls to that branch. So if Brian shows the example there, you're specifying master, right? In yours?
Yeah, I specify master, but it's still.
So you could say like you want the prod branch, the QA branch, the dev branch, whatever.
Yep. Normally that is exactly how you do it. Or what you can do is you can set up, if your environment has different variables, you can set up different GitHub Actions or different YAML files as well.
Each YAML file represents a single end. Yeah, it does in Brian's example, but I think you can do wildcarding, you can do all sorts of things, right? In looking at which, or you can have a list. I think those branches can be a list as well.
Oh, I know what I did wrong. I copied the wrong key. So let me just retry that one. Go to these actions, and I see this one, for instance, has failed, and I can rerun that same job, rerun all jobs. There are multiple jobs. It's okay, rerun all jobs, and now it will basically rerun whatever I used to do, and hopefully this works better now. And now it's just waiting.
This was just in answer to that previous question. So it looks like from the docs that you have all sorts of pattern matching in terms of selecting which branch things are going to apply to. So you can exclude, you can include, you've got patterning, you've got all sorts of stuff, and that can apply both at the trigger level and at the action level, right? Can I run open source license scanning from actions? You can run any kind of scanning you want. Ultimately, it's just running the, in this kind of setting, it's literally just running the Snyk CLI. So anything you can do with the Snyk CLI, you can do here. And that includes if you want to do complex filtering on the JSON, anything you can build a pipeline for. I think we had a brief talk in our CLI session about building filters using the JSON output from the CLI. So you could say like only fail if these are network accessible vulnerabilities or whatever. All that stuff you can do here as well. It's literally just using the CLI. So GitHub, I know, has been experiencing some issues over the last couple of days. Do we think maybe maybe GitHub is balked still?
Can be, but let's get into the file a little further, just to explain what normally would happen. What this normally means is it builds the application and then it runs Snyk test. That's what it does using your token. And if a Snyk test fails, as in there are problems, you have dependencies with vulnerabilities, then this GitHub action will fail, and you can choose, for instance, to do different things like continue on error or say a few different things. And that brings me to README over here, because this one is basically doing Snyk test as in the dependency scanning. And last time I know people asked, like, can we also do other things? And yes, because if you look here, you can give it arguments, and basically these arguments will get passed through to the CLI, which is in that Docker container it used under the hood. But you also can use a different command. So if you want to do Snyk code, you basically do that, and or you want to do Snyk container, you can do that as well. So you just have to be aware that just under the hood, it just uses a Docker container and downloads that contains the CLI, and it runs the CLI under the covers to do that in your application. So normally, and now you can be looking for an example that I pre-created.
Is there a simpler example than the Maven one that kind of has the whole thing in one action?
It depends. Like everything is pretty much like this, depending on your ecosystem, of course, and it builds on top of a Docker container. So I just wanted to show you something like this. I know it's another repository, and I just give something, and this is for one of my other applications. And what you see here is I pretty much do the same, but then I say with command code test. So that means it doesn't do Snyk test, it does Snyk code test. So basically the Snyk code equivalent to do that with a Maven build. But these are the pre-created containers, right? That I showed you. What you can do as well is you can create your own full pipeline. So that means that maybe this action is already run. Let me see. it's still cute. So I'm not sure if it will actually run or not. But say I want to create a new workflow, and I want to base this on, well, in this case it's a Java application. This one makes a lot of sense, and well, this pretty much does all the things that we need to do to get this built. It uses JDK 11, it builds with Maven, and then it wants to publish things. Well, let's leave that publishing away. But what we can do we can also, because it's just a container or an environment that is built on top of Ubuntu. So why not build this as part of your pipeline as well? If you want to use that, we can do something like this. Maybe I can, after I build this application, maybe I want to set up a new thing and do something like this. So I set up Node.js just for my environment with version 14. And then I can just install the CLI.
Right, okay. Yeah, I see where you're going with this.
So you see what I'm getting with this, because it's just like you build up normally in Docker container. You can do all these things. How do you say it? Consecutively?
Yep.
So I'm now installing the CLI, and I can basically, because now that means my Snyk CLI is available, and I can do something like this.
So are all of those secrets available to you as envars then within your?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And for this,
that'll be available in that Snyk. And is that the right envar that you need for running the CLI from the?
If you look in the docs for the CLI, then you will see that if you use Snyk_token as an environment variable, then it will get picked up. The CLI will look for that environment variable. So I'm just doing this here. And I know that, so if I'm just starting this commit Maven publish, let's see if that one works. I'm not sure.
So what was your trigger there for that particular workflow?
Again, on publish, and that's the Maven package thing. But I think that GitHub is experiencing some problems, because this one is still cute, and I'm not sure why it doesn't run again. So that,
do these normally run pretty swiftly then?
Yeah, pretty swiftly. If I ask a thing like, oh, this is a run that was restarted, but if I do over here and I ask rerun all jobs, it normally starts right away. So I'm not really sure why it's not running. And well, as you see, this is live, and this is just doing this from the GitHub webpage.
So we have GitHub Actions and Experience Integrated Performance. We are continuing to investigate.
And exactly today we're doing a GitHub Action.
Yeah, exactly. That was good timing for deciding to do GitHub Actions.
I mean, what are the odds?
But basically, what I'm saying is, you can choose to do this as a separate action. So on push, you can say like, hey, I have a separate action for doing my normal things like building my application and doing my unit tests, and then have a separate action that runs in parallel to do the Snyk testing, and then you can do a third action to do Snyk code testing, and a fourth action to do Snyk container testing, because I showed you that you can do Snyk code and Snyk container from the same template as well, if you just put in another argument.
So if you do that, if we run that on push, what does that look like in the? Have you got an example in the UI of what that looks like for the repo? Like if you said do this every push, does that show on the front page of my on like anywhere in the pull requests or whatever that something has failed there as part of a push, or is it only within that actions tab that I get?
If I'm pulling up my screen, and this is from a real life project, the big fix that we just did a couple of months ago. It's a private thing, so I'm not showing you the code. But The thing is that you see this green tick over here.
That's what I was getting at. Right. Okay. So will that be a red cross if that?
Yes. If a commit has a specific problem, it will, in either of the things, it will give you a red cross. And if I go to the actions, then you will see that I have 2 actions, an example workflow for Maven, basically the one that I showed you normally, and that if we go to that, I think we can go into here and you can see the, oh, this is the Snyk code YAML. Well, but I have two actions, and as I showed you, the actions are based in my .github/action. So the Maven build is simply a Maven build for Java 17, and it does the install CLI, basically what I showed you with an npm install the Snyk CLI, and then doing a Snyk test and a Snyk monitor. So it's also in my account, and I did a separate action just to test it out for Snyk code that runs in parallel every push. So every push, 2 actions will get triggered, and you will see the results in your actions tab. And if you want to see like what's happening here, you can basically inspect it all the way. It says
and those are each of the steps in the job,
each of these
right?
steps, yeah. So I build my application with Maven, I set up Node.js, I installed the Snyk CLI, so you will see what happened.
But so in these ones, you're doing exactly what you said before. You've built it yourself, the Snyk.
I'm using it. Yes, like I'm as a good salesman, I have this one at home. Like I'm using it myself. That's definitely what I'm doing. And at this one, I say run Snyk monitor, which pushes the same results to my.
And these are all on. You've got these all running on push, right?
I've got these all running on push.
Is how the output is displayed any different for a PR? Like, does it if you've got? I mean, I know you showed the tick on the hash ref, but does that show in the pull request thing whether these have failed? If it's on a particular PR. All right. Okay. Awesome.
Yep. These are automatic pull. These are automatic pull requests from the Snyk integration. That says like, hey, you need to update, or we can update to a newer version or whatever, and that these go to these actions as well, because these pull requests are on the master branch, so they will get triggered.
Dan is saying, is a commit not the same as a push?
A commit is on your local Git. Basically, what you do is on your well, if you do it here, yes, and you commit something, it is all directly, like I'm doing it from the GitHub UI, then it's directly in your central repository, if I can call it like that. What you normally do is if you work on these from your local machine, you don't even need to get to an internet connection, and you commit it. It's a local commit on your local machine, and then you push all the commits all together, or one by one, whatever you want, to the central repository. So that is why we say on push. And push means something's coming in from the outside to the central repository, which is here, GitHub. And at that point, I wanted to get triggered, because it doesn't make sense to have this triggered on my local machine, because it doesn't tell me the YAML doesn't work there. This is specifically for GitHub.
Yeah,
I hope
a push could be multiple commits, right?
Yeah, a push can be multiple commits. I can make multiple commits and push them all at once, like 4 or 5 commits all at once to my Git repository, or to my central Git repository, and then we can have the whole debate there, should you squash these or not, but that's a whole different thing. That's more on
that's a whole nother live stream.
That's a whole nother live stream, and I think that is well, more based on opinions than and work style than on actual facts.
I mean, I guess from a security workflow perspective, most of the time you're really going to be wanting to look at pull request triggers rather than push triggers, I would have thought. Right?
I think it depends how you work on it. If it's just you on your like, I know that in a lot of larger companies, you work with pull requests. But I've also worked in teams on small things, and everybody just has the decency to do it, to make sure that every of the unit tests were already run. And some people just directly committed to the repository. And we can say it's good or bad, but some people don't use pull requests. That is just a fact.
Yeah.
So you can, and on push is something that works also for a pull request. So that means
But
if somebody
that push is still effectively the head of the branch, right? So you're not gating anything there, are you?
I'm just indicating there is a problem, but I can also do this now. I did it on a push on the master or the main branch, but I can also say it's a push on the development branch. It is how
is it going to stop you from being able to push if you've got an action set up on push?
No, I don't think the action is the part that's gating you to push. I think that is more your settings on GitHub to make sure that specific users cannot just directly push on your.
Well, I mean, of course, I guess what you could do if you did have an environment where people weren't raising PRs and you were just relying on pushes, you could have everybody run a sneak check as a Git pre-commit, right? Which kind of forces people to do it locally in their local Git before it ever gets near GitHub.
Unfortunately, GitHub Actions doesn't wants to run yet, so that's why I have this backup thing, like my actual project that I worked on.
Lucky you've got that, right?
In January and February, just to show you what it does, and you see that the actions example workflow for Maven and in the Java CI pipeline. And sometimes it doesn't work. Well, then you see that in this case, the build with Maven thing failed. And I'm not sure why it failed, probably because I made a stupid mistake. Oh, the sneak monitor failed because it wasn't authenticated. So you see that actually in this part, I actually download the CLI with NPM, and then I'm doing a certain amount of steps, and it says, hey, it's not authenticated for some reason. But it did do the sneak test, which is weird. So that might be just.
So in that environment, you don't need to run sneak auth though, there, right? If you've got the token, perhaps you didn't have the token in the envar at that point.
I think I have, because at that point sneak test did run, and they also need to verify. So it might be just a dodgy connection. Sometimes that is the case with any system. But then we go into, like, if I have that sneak in capitals _token as an environment variable available, then the CLI will pick that up without doing any further specification. And I don't need to do a sneak auth, because normally if I do a sneak auth, and you have seen that in our CLI episode of the user office hours, then sneak auth pops up a screen, a URL, and then you have to click. Basically an OAuth
human interaction,
and you don't want any human interaction in these kind of things. And every time you set up a fresh environment, so then having it as an environment variable, a secret, then it makes far more sense. And that is something that is, I think it's the preferred way to do it on a CI system. So I basically showed you two ways, and I'm a bit sad that we cannot actually demonstrate it because GitHub is having issues. But I think these are the main two ways to go into different or how to set up GitHub Actions in different ways. Either part of your build that it's just one thing, or you want to have that in parallel, which makes sense in some cases if you want to do both sneak open source or sneak dependency scanning, but also sneak container. I do love this question though. So are there preferred ways to integrate sneak into our projects? Today covered using GitHub Actions, but I'm curious how you decide between that versus maybe importing it in the Sneak UI app.
That's a great question, and I think what the answer to that is that I in my view is that it depends who you mean by is there whose preferred way is there, and because I think these all solve for different use cases, right? I mean, you know, if I'm a developer working on stuff, I don't really want to have to go to the Snyk app and look things up all the time. What I want is information in my workflow as frictionless as possible, and you know, give me the stuff where I am. So that means IDEs, that means the CLI, that means, you know, GitHub, that means all the places where I work. And I don't want to have to go, oh, I'm going to switch and check the security. That's not to say that there isn't, you know, an ongoing benefit to other folks to have that stuff in the Snyk UI. Because for your security, for your AppSec team, for example, they're interested in things over time. They're interested in changes. They're interested in reporting, and so I think those things kind of serve different.
They serve different goals.
But there is an important specification there, though, about monitoring on an ongoing basis, which is that you do want to be catching things that have changed where the code may not have changed, right, Brian?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I've committed something, it all passed fine because there were no vulnerabilities in it when I committed it, you know, but the only way I'm going to pick that up is if I'm scanning over time. And so what the monitor scan will give you is scanning over time. So if something changes in an upstream package, that's going to get scanned and noted. Okay, with that, we are over time now. Well, it's been a pleasure, as always, Brian, hanging out with you and kicking the tires on this stuff. I think we've definitely got more we can explore there. We'll revisit this in some future session. Thank you to you all for joining us. If you do have any other questions about Snyk or anything related to security, you can reach out to Brian or I on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on all the places.
Folks, thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and see you next time.
See you later.